What's up, everybody? Happy Tuesday. Kevin, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
There we go.
We have an incredible webinar planned for you all today, right, Kevin?
Absolutely. Can't wait.
So fired up to have you here and run us through how to make a jersey swap in Photoshop. The NFL draft is coming up. The NBA draft could be coming up. Many of you are going to have athletes that are going to be taking their step to the next level. It is my hope that this session helps take your content to the next level, particularly not just in the graduation from collegiate to pro, but also from high school to college, and help you with your recruiting efforts in your content creation as well. Some quick housekeeping for those that have been here or haven't been here, excuse me. We have upcoming webinars. Tomorrow is going to be a big one with Erin Hodges. Got to see a little bit of stuff that she's been working on yesterday. Really excited about the TikTok session. There's been a lot of energy around the platform, and I know I've spent hours upon hours during this quarantine laughing my ass off at some of the things that have been happening on there. So should be a good educational session for everyone to understand how it can apply to your own brand without looking ancient, and should be fun. Nikki just popped in a link in the chat to sign up for the session if you haven't already. Nikki's also going to be collecting all your Twitter and LinkedIn accounts so you can all network amongst each other, get to know each other, follow what everyone's working on. Building the community is really important right now. We've had a lot of really great feedback from people about who they've been able to connect with, and I've been really fired up about some of the messages as well. So keep dropping in your Twitter accounts and your LinkedIns in there, and Nikki will share a Google Sheet as soon as it's done in the chat once everything is compiled. Kevin is going to be taking questions. I'll help moderate as he's building what he's got prepared. Have you already teased yet what you're making?
Yes. So I put out a quick picture on my Twitter at KF Slattery, but just so we can kind of take a look real quick. Or you guys make sure you're able to see my screen.
Let's hold that real quick. Real quick.
We can hold on it. We can hold on it. We can hold on it.
It's really exciting.
It's you know what it is? That's incentive for you guys to go follow me. Go follow me at KF Slattery. You can go see it a little early. But yeah, I'm really excited. Really excited.
It should be fun. We debated upon which one you were going to end up doing, and I'm glad you chose the one you're going to start doing. I was a big proponent. I know Danielle's probably in here. Danielle was a big fan of this one as well.
Yeah, and it was one too where of the things that we were talking about, it felt like every other option besides this one eventually fell by the wayside. Like we were talking about a Cam Newton piece, a Cam Newton Patriots piece. Mm-hmm. And then I feel like as soon as I exited out of that conversation, you see articles about how like Cam Newton, there's no way he'd be a fit with the Patriots, and everybody says it's a bad idea. I was like, all right, well, that's toast. Then the other one.
That's your boy, though. That's your boy.
That is my guy. He's one of the more fun players I've ever watched. And then you've also thought about a Tom Brady Buccaneers one, but then as you guys all know, they just released their brand new uniforms. So it's going to become dated instantly. So I didn't want to do that. So the one we decided on is Joe Burrow to the Bengals, as that has been the kind of obvious number one overall selection. They have number one overall selection. Burrow's kind of at the top of everybody's mock draft. So I feel like that was kind of the go-ahead winner.
Yeah, smart move right here. Kevin's going to have his Photoshop files available, or excuse me, I shouldn't speak ahead of it. He's going to have it available. Yes. But for those that are going to be following along, highly recommend you put your computer into compatibility mode. So it's going to be about 15 seconds behind. That way, things are not going to be, if there's any bandwidth issues on your end, it'll minimize those issues. So ask any questions that you have. I'll jump in and bug Kevin. The goal with him is to just continue to press on through Photoshop and kind of work through what he's got planned for today. And Kevin, thank you again. Welcome, and I'm fired up to see what you're gonna create here for everyone.
Thank you. So real quick background for everybody. My name's Kevin Slattery, director of football creative design with Navy FB. I've been there for a little over a year now. I started there in January of 2019. So this past season was my first season with Navy. Before that, I spent 3 seasons with ECU football. I got there in October of 16. So I kind of got there partway through the year, and I was in a similar role there. Technically, my title was recruiting quality control, but I was really just kind of a one-man creative media department. And then as we grew on, we brought in interns and other people within the recruiting staff that were able to help me a great deal. Before that, I'm a proud YCP Spartan, class of 16.
Is that a shout out to anyone that's currently on this?
I think we have one person, Kaz, I went to college with. So, a lot of different mass comm majors in general from smaller schools. I always, I'm lucky enough to be able to be a proud Spartan and a proud alum of that, because they don't actually have a football team. So it's really not a conflict of interest. And it's just kind of a proof that, we have a lot of people in this chat, I think, from different schools at all different levels, right? As high up as Power 5 D1 to Division 3. So wherever you're at, don't let the school that you're at dictate the content that you make. There's always little things that you can do to up your game and to try to be better. It's amazing how now with the availability of camera phones and even DSLRs and Adobe Creative Suite, the way they've priced it, it's just so much more compatible now for a lot of different people. So that's why I'm really excited to kind of jump into this thing.
Yeah, to echo what you're saying, I think from like a bigger team, organization perspective, as much as you try not to say you're quote unquote copying and you're stealing ideas from people, the reality is you're influenced by those that have less resources but also have more time for creativity.
Absolutely.
And so the learnings from my career has been, you've got to pay attention to what's happening in college, and you got to pay attention to what's happening in high school. And even at the D2, D3 level, you got to pay attention to what they're doing, because eventually there's going to be the influence of what's happening there up to the higher spots. So whenever I'm looking at influence or, innovative ideas, I always look at the people who are the most in the weeds. And that's why I'm so excited about putting something like this together, because most of the people, or I should say everyone that's on this, are very creative, have a lot of great ideas, and it's important that in a time like this, we all learn from each other as much as possible. So, Kevin, I'm going to try not to interrupt you anymore.
You're good. So I'm going to go ahead and start doing a little bit of, make sure I can get this screen share going. I'm in Photoshop right now. We have our finished product here. So this is where we want to end up at. So we've got our player in one group, right, in our background here. So this is kind of a two-pronged tutorial. And as I was making this, there's a lot of different challenges, and it was suggested to me to do the color rush uniform. So that provided a unique challenge insofar as switching from a color jersey to a white jersey.
What was the original Getty image that you used? The
original Getty image, and we'll start out with it. Let's start out with by making a new document, and we will plop the original Getty image right in there. So 1350 by 1080. We're going to go vertical and a resolution of 150. Most people just do 72 DPI for images, because that's, when you look at it originally, that's the first thing that you see. But I like with 150, if people zoom in on it, they might catch a little bit of detail. And this 1080 by 1350, the reason why we do that is it plays nice with Instagram. So we're going to make a new deal there. So here's our original image to answer your question. I've already cut it out, but this is a good way to kind of give us a baseline. I liked this picture because he's scoring a touchdown, and then that's always kind of just a good moment. He's kind of got his tongue out a little bit here. You can see that he's kind of swagging. He's having a good time. So to me, that's what Joe Burrow is. Just kind of from an outside looking in. So anytime I make a graphic, I always try to bring a picture with some juice. I think that's kind of an important thing is, you try to simulate that in shoots and in a studio setting, but it just isn't the same as a real moment. So we're going to start out with that, and we're going to duplicate this layer, right? Because I want to include the mask just in case we need to make any changes. We're going to bring that in Untitled 1 here. Ta-da. Okay. So he's a little big. I'm going to make it, size him up there so that he's making sense. All right. Cool. So that's a start. Now what I would do here is I would go through and cut him out But I've done a little bit of that up at the top, just so that this way we're not wasting a whole lot of time seeing me do the step and repeat process of that. The other thing too is a lot of people have different attitudes and thought processes on how to cut out a player. And the thing that is true, not just for me, but for any designer, is we all have our picadillos. We all have different ways of doing things. The thing that I think makes Photoshop very intimidating for beginners is that you wind up having a lot of different ways to do the same thing. So while you might see me do something in a particular way in this tutorial, don't feel like you have to do it exactly that way. I know whenever I watch tutorials, it's kind of like when I was a kid and I would play with Legos, where I would be going through and I would start the process the way the kit told me to, but then as I went along, I kind of wound up doing my own thing. So when we make a jersey swap, football, I would say, is one of the hardest sports to jersey swap because you have so many different components, right? Mm-hmm. So we're going to go from top to bottom. We're going to start with our helmet, and then we're going to go to the jersey, and then we're going to go to the pant. All right. And then after that, we're going to go to his leggings and cleats and everything like that. Now, if you go to the original image that we're kind of building off of, you'll see that we kind of, with our, we black and whited that out and kind of took the saturation out, and that took a lot of steps off of our process. If you are watching this tutorial and you're like, hey, I want an expert level version of this, go ahead and try and swap that out. Again, we're going to save on some of that for time because I want to also show you guys how to not only do the jersey swap, but also the graphic component of this, because there are some things in the graphic component of this that make the jersey swap look a little bit better and kind of convey a little bit more than what they otherwise might. So let's go ahead and get started here. We're going to start off with the helmet. So when we're looking at Joe Burrow's helmet, right, he's got a Revo Speed Flex on. So it's really important that you pay attention to what type of helmet, because if I tried to go get like a traditional helmet, like a Schutt Air XP or something along those lines, a helmet that didn't quite have the same shape, it would be a little bit tougher of a swap. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back here. So again, this was one of the pictures that I was able to pick out here. So this is the original image. Again, we've already cut it out. And so I really just want to take the shell. So the other thing about doing the Bengals, right, is the Bengals have such a distinct helmet, right? I mean, it's one of the most iconic helmets in all of football. And it's a little bit tougher than other helmets, right? Because other helmets, I might be able to go in here, take the LSU off, slap a logo on, and call it a day. But with this helmet, that just wasn't going to be a thing that we could do here. So let's go back over to our helmet. Sweet. So we're going to duplicate this guy again, bring him over. In fact, you know what? I might even, to save my processor just a little bit, we're going to apply layer mask. So when I cut people out, or when I cut anything out, I always do it in a layer mask first. For those of you guys that are new to new to Photoshop, a lot of this tutorial is going to use layer masks. I would highly suggest taking time and kind of learning the exactly how those work. But basically what it does is it allows me to only display certain parts of the image and sort of, quote, cut out different parts of the image. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to duplicate this, duplicate layer. We're going to bring it right in here in my Untitled one. I'm going to, obviously it's super big, right? It's always easier to take an image that's too big and make it smaller. Because when our image is, typically when our image is too big, that means it has plenty of quality. Thanks to the people at Influencer for hooking me up with some Getty images. That was absolutely clutch. I felt like a kid at a candy store with that. Growing up doing jersey swaps and graphics, it's always just, you're at the mercy of Google Images. So the fact that the team at Influencer was able to hook me up with these really made this process possible, frankly. So now what we're going to try and do is I'm going to try and go in here and as close as I can get this helmet on top of Joe Burrow. So that's going to be part of the process here. And I want to apply as few transitions as possible. So again, if you guys have any questions, feel free to, holler at me. But there's going to be a component to this too, where I want to keep his face mask pretty much intact, right? I don't want to add this, try to finagle this face mask on there, right? Because getting this face his face mask to match this exactly might not quite work. So we're going to kind of get a baseline there. Sweet. Okay. So that gives us a start. One thing that I've also found that just this particular image, see how this orange kind of looks like yellow? So figuring out where his helmet ends and the Bengals helmet begins is a little bit of a difficult thing. So let's go ahead and lower our opacity and see if that doesn't help us here. I'm hitting Control T to quickly get to my transform. And I'm grabbing the corner here. And I'm just doing lots of little adjustments, trying to see how close I can get it, right? We don't want it to be too standoffish, because a lot of these helmets, they do come off the forehead and off the back of the head a lot, but not too much. So I think we got a good starting point there. We'll hit enter to finalize that transition. Oh, excuse me. Finalize that transition. All right, cool. So turn this up. And now, since I feel pretty good about this, start taking some of this away. All right. So remember, the part we're most interested in with this is the stripes. We really want to make sure that we got our stripes here. All right. And then we're a little less concerned about the chin. So we want to make sure that we have the chin. We want to make sure we have the original chin strap in there. Right. Okay, cool. So how much of the chin strap can we get in here without having to compromise on the design part of the helmet? Right?
Kevin, whenever you see a jersey swap, do you sometimes save the image and like zoom in to see like how clean the edit was like this?
Oh yeah. I won't necessarily save it, but I will definitely zoom in on my phone for sure. A lot of pinch and drag action going on there. So I think the attention to detail and the craftsmanship part of it is kind of the most interesting component. Because when you're somebody who's, when you're a designer or you're someone who's doing this a lot, that's just naturally what your eye's going to go to, right? Is trying to find sort of, I can see this, almost a little bit of a gotcha, right? So now we're just trying to see how much of the detail of the helmet can we bring in without making it look like it's too wonky. The other thing you might notice here is the original helmet. If we take off so I hit shift and clicked on the layer mask, that temporarily deselects the mask or disables the mask. This way I'm able to see the full image. So if you look at the full image, we got this visor, right? Well, Joe Burrow's not rocking a visor. So we got this little Oakley thing here. So we got to get that out. So now that we've placed our image and we feel kind of comfortable with it, let's go ahead and see if we can't get rid of that. So what I did was I hit Control J, and that, there it is, Control J. Neat. That takes me to my healing tool. And actually, you know what? We're going to go with the stamp tool. And the stamp tool, basically what it does is it repeats parts of the image and allows me to clone parts of the image and place them in different spots. So I make sure my brush isn't too big there. So I put caps lock on by accident, and what that does is that just kind of changes how I see things. So let's go in here and let's take this up, normal up. See how one thing I've started doing there was I hit Control S and I was modifying the mask instead of the actual image. I want to modify the actual image. So let's go ahead and do that there. And see how we're just taking that little Oakley visor off there while using other parts of the image. Just a little bit like that. And that's gonna, again, just add to that realism. So kind of like we were talking about where when you're zooming in, you're looking to see, okay, what did they miss? How do I tell this is photoshopped? Little things like that. I've seen a lot of people on Tom Brady swaps recently not taking out the visor, and it's just little things like that you want to try to see if you can't nail. All right, so again, we're getting back to it. So let's do this too. The Speed Flex, or the Riddell helmets in general, just have these really distinctive marks right here where the vents are. So let's go ahead and bring some of that back. That's why we like to work in layer masks. Layer masks are what's called non-destructive elements in Photoshop. And a non-destructive element means that when you make a change, if you want to go back and revert, you can go back and revert. A destructive element means that, like, hey, you made a change and you can't fix it. That's why I don't use the eraser tool a lot. I think that's a trap a lot of people that are maybe a little bit newer to Photoshop kind of fall into, is using the eraser tool. And then when you erase stuff and it's gone forever, you're not able to go back and make changes. And that's always kind of a bummer. So especially with something like this where you have to modify it so much, it's really nice to be able to go back and make changes. So, all right, so we've got Joe Burrow here. It looks like a little bit of that. Let's get, there we go. Now we're looking natural. That's good. Sweet, cool. Cool. Looking a little bit more like an actual football helmet. So obviously this isn't great, right? We don't love this big yellow thing. We're gonna have to change let's get rid of the LSU logo here, or get rid of part of the LSU logo here. So again, we're just using I hit Control S, get back to our stamp tool, and we're just clone and stamp. Or let's try something else to get rid of that. Let's use, hit L to go to the lasso tool, right? And we're just gonna kind of get a rough selection here. I think I might be the one designer to use the lasso tool in a tutorial, but sometimes I just need to do a quick cutout. That's a really great way to do that. So we're going to go Edit, and recent Photoshop updates have the Content Aware Fill, and I think that's a great tool when you're doing stuff like this. Not enough pixels on selected layer. That's why we're modifying this new layer here and not the actual original layer. Before I do that, before I make any changes to that, let me duplicate this, right? The reason why I'm doing that, because we were talking about our original image. Let's keep our original image, and we're going to lock this. We're going to call it original. Lock red. Great. So now as we're about to make what's called a destructive change, right? We're about to use that clone stamp tool. Just in case we need to go back, we can do that. All right. So we're going to make that layer invisible. Got a nice cutout here. Neat. Go ahead and just get back to that lasso real quick. And easy. And I'm just clicking. Each time you make a click, it makes a point and you pivot and you can go from there. Make sure I'm selecting my layer and not my layer mask. Edit, Content Aware Fill. Let's see. Hey, that's pretty passable. All right. Apply. Okay. And then we still have a little bit of fringing around the edges. Of course, it's still in the lasso tool. That's annoying. J is our healing tool, and I just hit J on my keyboard. That goes right to the healing tool. Let's see if we can't use our brush here. And get a little clone stamp tool. See if that doesn't. All right, what's going on here? All right, so the brush tool is working fine. There we go. All right, cool. So again, just trying to make sure that's a nice natural transition. We're not having a whole bunch of ugly fringing.
This might be a dumb question, Kevin, but is there any cheat sheet that you use for Photoshop shortcuts?
You know, there isn't. I think it's been a lot of trial and error. But I would highly recommend. There are actual I know there are keyboards for After Effects, and I've seen them also available for Photoshop. Where it just has you put it over your keyboard and it shows you which is which. A lot of people use custom keyboard or custom shortcuts that help them. So it's kind of, again, a lot of the trick with Photoshop is it's personal preference. So I don't use that, but I think a beginner, it might be really good to print out a sheet and have it as a handy dandy reference. Kind of going back here, I don't really need that anymore. We still have this. This looks gross. Let's again just try to use our clone stamp tool, just so we don't have such a neat. All right, cool. So this is going to be the step and repeat process we go through a lot. We're just going to use our pen tool and we're going to mask out the helmet real quick. And we just want the helmet shell. We don't want a whole lot of the other things, right? The chin strap, we'll get to that later, and we'll use a layer mask to not have to deal with that so bad. But we don't need to mask out the whole helmet. So again, we're using Control P, and then we're each time we click and drag, we make a new point. I would highly suggest doing this if you are new to Photoshop. I would highly suggest there are lots of tutorials about how to use the pen tool. There are lots of actual really helpful exercises that I will put on my Twitter after this that are really great for learning the pen tool. But another reason why I like the pen tool is I looked at it, I said, I don't really like this corner here. Let me make an adjustment, and I'm able to do that with something like the quick select tool or magic wand or whatever it may be. While I use those tools as well, there's just something about going to the pen tool and being able to do it yourself that's great. So I made our path selection. You can feather it by 0.0 pixels. Let's go with a 0 feather. We're going to make a new adjustment layer. Hue saturation, 0 brightness, keep that where that's at. And we're going to call that helmet desat _ desat. Right, so that's our desaturation layer. And you can see that we've got a little bit of pixels that we missed. So I'm going to go in my brush. Again, this is why layer masks are so great. So I can go in here, make sure I'm using my white to add to the mask. I'm just going to touch those up a little bit here and there so that we're paying attention to detail and all that other stuff, because that's going to be what separates a good swap from an okay swap. Another thing I'm going to do here too, while I'm thinking of it, I hit backslash. What backslash does is it makes it so that everything that is not in black in this layer mask here, that shows up in red on my screen, and everything that I see on my screen that's not covered in red, that's in white on here. So that's what shows through the layer mask. So I'm going to go in here and I'm just going to try to really quickly take this out here. Great. And what I'm doing is I'm trying to get the chin strap. I might have to go back in here with a pen tool, which is fine. I don't want the chin strap to be a part of this. We're going to use this mask later so that our two element, so that when we add the fill, because what we do is we have one layer that desaturates it, right? That kind of almost gives it a baseline. And then once we do that, we can add our fill. So to make a little bit more sense, we actually are able to show it rather than tell it. So again, we're just going in here, we're using X. The other shortcut I really like is I use X, and that quickly switches foreground and background. So that's a quick way while I'm using the brush tool here to navigate. And I'm also using my brackets. So the brackets quickly change your brush size in Photoshop. And if you shift those bracket sizes, and if you shift in the bracket, that will change your brush hardness quickly. So again, you can see that we're using a variety of tools. So anyone that tells you only have to learn one tool, even if it is the pen tool that I love so much, don't just learn one way to skin a cat, is what I'm trying to tell you. All right, great, sweet. We're gonna hit backslash again so that we look normal. All right, that gets us close enough. And then we're gonna make a new layer here. We use our adjustments, solid color. We're going to use our color picker. We're going to pick the helmet right here. That's pretty close. Let's get a little closer. Sweet. All right, so now we have this big giant solid here. How do we get that solid to only apply to the helmet? Our nice mask here should do it. All right, cool. So we've got a start, right? But of course, we don't see the ear hole. We don't see that chin strap's going to need a lot. So we're going to lower the opacity and just start cutting things out here. So use our pen tool, right? And we're clicking and dragging. Let's even make this go away here. Making a shape that matches that. Cut that out. We're going to switch to the brush tool, black. Now, make sure that here and there and there. Sweet. The other thing we have is we have this complicated face mask here. So we're gonna, again, get to our pen tool. We're gonna cut out the face mask going right through here. And again, these are the little details that kind of make the difference. Does anybody have any questions while we're kind of going through this part of it? This is kind of a good place if any of you have any any questions, I am happy to address them.
I'll get things started here real quick. So how long, when you were putting this together, did it take you to actually from start to finish without having to explain yourself?
It honestly, it took me a few attempts, really, just because when you're doing something like this, that's not what I wanted. When you're doing something like this, there was a lot of trial and error, a lot of, okay, well, how do I get this exact thing to fit this exact way? So we're just going through here. We're taking the color fill off, we're taking the desaturation off.
When you first started getting into Photoshop, where did you use as your main source of education?
So my number one source of education was YouTube tutorials, YouTube and Innovo. I think it was Innovo. I think it's how you pronounce it. But like PSD Plus, PSD Tuts.plus, or something like that. It was something that was, I think that was the website. It was kind of where I first got into it. So when I was in college, the first time I got real Photoshop access was I was able to get into our college radio station.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the first building I was able to get into that had a computer with Photoshop on it. So I would actually spend my Saturdays just goofing around with that. So here's something that as we're fooling with the helmet here, see how we have, if we take these two layer masks off, you can kind of see it. And backslash on here. So see how we have these sort of semi-translucent images, or the semi-translucent attachments onto the face mask. We want to use our layer mask here to kind of give us a good idea we want some orange in there, but not a whole lot. So we're going to use, instead of using black or white on our layer mask, we're going to use like a 50-60% brightness and just touch that up there. So that's why it kind of takes multiple attempts as you're really just trying to nail that down here. Where did my...
What are some of your go-to inspiration accounts that you follow?
1 second. So for whatever reason, we lost our adjustment layer there. That's not great. 1 second. Let's fix that. Black and white. Let's do it. To answer your question, a lot of the go-to accounts that I follow, there are a lot of different people in across the business that I really like to follow. Real quick here. All right, cool. Now one of the accounts that I really like to follow is Trenches. They do an absolutely fantastic job of highlighting different different creatives across social media. So they won't necessarily be one place or another. Like Skull Sparks, for instance, is a great follow, but they're mostly concerned with college athletics, right? You don't really get a whole lot of pro stuff on their account. Now, if you are somebody that is looking to get into college athletics from a creative standpoint, Skull Sparks and Jason Matheson are a must follow. They're always highlighting. He does such a good job. I'm sure you guys have interacted with him a good bit.
Oh yeah.
But he does a fantastic job. For a while, I was doing a podcast with Designing Sports at Designing Sports on Twitter. They do a fantastic job as well of just highlighting lots of different talent across different platforms. Juke is another one at Juke Design. They do a great job too of just kind of whatever's cool, whatever's going on, whatever people are looking at. That's what they're kind of paying attention to. So let's go in here, bring this opacity back up to 100, and then we're going to change our blending mode to overlay. And you can start to see it's starting to make a little bit more sense, right? This is starting to look a little bit more like a football helmet. We're going to, again, you got these semi-translucent parts that are a little bit of a gotcha. So we're going to increase our brightness here. And we're just trying to make sure that blends nice and realistic. It's got us close. Zoom out. Yeah, that's a little better. Again, we want that all to match. There. Neat. All right. All right, and again, we're using our shortcuts here and our brush tool, and that's what's getting us where we need to be. And we're just
Whenever you're ready for some more questions, we got some.
Sweet. I am very ready for questions because again, a lot of this is unfortunately this is a little bit of a tedious process.
Yep.
So I'm down to have a conversation with anybody who wants to talk anything creative.
Here we go. First one's from Stephen Malley from Iowa Athletics. How much time do you usually budget for a jersey swap?
So jersey swaps haven't been as much a part of our kind of recruiting content plan. We kind of do a couple different things with that. So I would say if I was going to budget for it, I would take an afternoon, honestly, an afternoon and maybe even then some, especially depending on how frequently you do this and the image, how long it takes out to pick out images. It was a little bit of an embarrassment with riches as far as being able to pick out different images from Getty, just because you have so many options and so many choices that it was a little bit overwhelming at first. Whereas if you're going from Google, your options are limited, so that might take down your time. So I would budget at least an afternoon. Fortunately, because I've done this one already, I'm able to kind of go through it a little bit more quickly, but it does take time. So while we're here, real quick, I feel pretty good about where we're at with that helmet. I'm kind of ready to move on to the next step. The only thing that I'm going to fix here is I'm going to use my warp tool. I'm going to use my rectangle selection. All right, select that, and I want those tiger stripes to kind of come down. So I'm going to move that there. And then the reason why it's not, you still have this blank space is because it's in black in the layer mask. So we're going to go to our layer mask, go to white, and we're going to finagle that so that this way the layer mask is displaying all that nice information so that we're getting those nice stripes. And that's all playing the way we want it to. Cool. That gets us, I would say, at a passable point on the helmet. Anybody have any questions as far as the helmet goes?
Not seeing any questions as far as the helmet. Got some other ones, though.
Sweet. Can you give me one more of those?
Yeah. What is the most difficult part of doing this edit?
I would say the most difficult part of this edit is going from a white pant, from a yellow pant into a white pant. And we'll go ahead and we'll talk about that later. Luckily, part of the reason why LSU was a good selection is because I knew that LSU typically wears white no matter what the game is, or they're one of the few teams that almost always wears white, whether it's home or away. So because I knew we were going to swap to a white uniform, I knew we were going to be able to just kind of take the sleeve out, sort of like this. And you know what? I started this with the lasso tool. Don't want to use the lasso tool. Let's get to the pen tool because we want to make a more specific selection. So one thing that's a gotcha with this particular uniform is you've got that extra Bengal stripe up there. You got to make sure you select that. So we're going to go in here. We're going to kind of do our best. Again, we're clicking and dragging, clicking and dragging, clicking and dragging. We're going to grab all of that jersey. Go from there. Neat. We're just trying to get it good. Doesn't need to be pixel perfect, but just good enough that we're able to get a good idea of what we're grabbing here.
Kevin, real quick, this is a simple question. What's the best way to find high quality images for a swap? And we also got a shout out for Army. Go Army.
Whoever. All right.
Ben Westlake.
Who said that?
Ben Westlake.
Well, the CIC is where it belongs, Ben. That's all I got to say about that. But I appreciate the Service Academy love. So as far as the best place to find different images, I would say Google. When you go on Google, tools, size, large, using the tools in that is a really great way to make sure you're getting the highest quality pictures possible. So we're gonna, again, let's Control J. Let's apply this layer mask, and we're just gonna bring that over because I don't think we're gonna need to use too much of the extra sleeve or anything like that. So bringing it back over to our Untitled. Luckily with this jersey, we don't have to swap the whole color, which is nice. All right. Where are we at? Where are we at? Where are we at? Sleeve, duplicate. Now we're going to just play with this, kind of the same way we did with the helmet, right? So we're going to rotate it, get it to fit.
Got a shout out from Dalen Morris telling you what's up.
What's up, Dalen? What's going on with you, man? That's one of our players. It's good to have you here, man. I saw that he liked the tweet. I didn't think he was didn't think he was gonna slide through, but I really appreciate that. So one thing with this jersey, right, is we can see that we've got his sleeve there, the sleeve stripe. So we're gonna use that as a line of demarcation for where the sleeve begins and ends. So before we get too carried away, let's just group this helmet so that we're able to keep things somewhat organized. And we're gonna, let's go back to our reference image, right? Back to our original. So we kind of had it taken up the whole sleeve there. So this one, we wanted to kind of do the same thing, right? I've already made it smaller, and I don't like making something smaller bigger again, so we're just going to duplicate it and bring it back in. Untitled 1. We're using our Command T. Lower the opacity here. And we're going to just kind of finagle this. We're going to use our warp, right? And what warp allows us to do is allows us to grab each anchor and kind of makes it so that we're able to, again, we're doing a lot of finagling, I don't know what the technical term for finagling is, but whatever that term is, that's what we're doing.
You do you, Kevin.
We're having a good time. So that covers up a big part of our stripe here. The other thing I'm going to do too is I'm going to rename this content aware, so we're able to keep track of that. Taking back that pen tool, and we're giving a nice wide berth, because what we're going to do now is we're going to take out the stripe now that we've used it as a kind of a baseline. All right, we're not too worried about this part of it because that's already been cut out. I want to give it a little bit wider berth, a little bit more room here. Hit P to get back to my path, selection, 0, image. Edit content aware fill. And so what we're doing here now is basically we're telling Photoshop where we want it to fill in that selected area from, because we don't want any of the 9 and we don't want too much of this other LSU stuff. So we're taking our brush, and the green area is what it's pulling from. So that's where we want to make sure we're having as a nice selection there. All right. So we're kind of getting there. And it looks like it's pulling a lot of the dirt from right there. So let's see if we can't clean that up. Nice. Okay, apply. Okay. Sweet. So that's a little more smooth. Now we're there. So one other thing we can do too is we can hit Control and click on the mask, and that instantly selects all of our pixels. We can use that and mask it out so that it automatically fits there. We're going to unlink those and use that to adjust this. Make it a little bigger. The other thing too is we have these white parts that aren't really fitting. So I'm actually going to use our magic wand tool and see if we can't use our mask here. Cool. All right. There you go. So that matches a little closer. The other thing too, we still have our purples on the sleeve. So we want to make similar layer to what we did with our deal up top, where we had the desaturation layer that establishes a baseline, and then add a solid fill in there. So you can kind of get a sense of the rhythm here. Selection, okay. Adjustment, hue saturation, saturation 0, cool. And then we're going to make a new solid. Even though this is we're making it black, I still want to make sure that the black in this solid matches the black on the sleeve, so that we're all it's all unison on one level without having to make too many adjustments. Solid color picker, use our color picker from here. Sweet. And you can see it's not 000. The hex code is something different to that. Now we're just softening this because you can see it's kind of a hard edge. Don't love that. So we might even have to make some adjustment layers in there. But that's one of the other things too. We want to avoid fringing. We want to avoid hard edges. So this is still on a normal blending mode. We want to turn that into overlay, and we can reduce the opacity a little bit too. All right, cool. Sweet. All right, cool. So that's one part of it. Now let's take the number 9 out. So we're going to go to our content aware. We'll take the LSU part out first. And again, we're just using our lasso tool, edit, content aware fill, apply. Okay. And we're going to use our healing brush tool. Again, that's J. And we're just making little stamps, making little marks. Now we're going to select that number 9, going in here. Again, using our pen tool. Select that. We're going to kind of step and repeat that. Any other questions while we're step and repeating here?
Yeah, we have a couple.
Sweet.
First is, do you have a different process when it comes to doing swaps across uniform brands? Like if a Navy player is wearing Under Armour to an NFL Nike one, how does it work?
The way that would work is it's kind of, I would say it's case by case basis. So each one of those is going to be unique depending on the chassis that the NFL team has on, and sort of going from there. So like if you're in so like each of the NFL teams, even though they're all Nike, each of their uniforms are a little bit different. So it is kind of a case by case deal with that.
This one's from, I think, one of your friends, Sydney Sims.
Ah, yes. What's good?
With the producing of high amount of volume of recruiting graphics, is it feasible to do jersey swaps as a recruiting piece?
I think so. A lot of different schools do jersey swaps. At Navy we have done a little bit of that. The biggest thing I would say, is it feasible? Absolutely. It's just a matter of how you want to do it, what your particular recruiting strategy is and stuff like that. We've done a lot of different stuff with Navy, and Sydney's kind of seen a lot of that firsthand, where we'll have all different types of meetings and ideas that kind of get kicked around as far as recruiting goes. So I think it all depends, right? The Service Academy recruiting too is just a different animal. It's different from what any other school is doing. And actually that'll present different challenges, but also different opportunities. So it really depends. Sydney's too famous to hang out with us these days. So congratulations to her with getting the job at Notre Dame. Really, I'll use this as a public forum to tout the work that she does, man. She was great for us. It's kind of been nice not having to go in every day as we're all working from home, not having to go into the office every day. I don't have to look at her empty desk. So I appreciate that. That's been one of the few bright spots of working from home. And again, we're just doing our edit, content aware fill. Now we're taking out the Nike logo because even on the NFL jerseys, the Nike logo isn't placed there exactly. And that was a pretty slick deal. So just while we're in the mode of removing stuff, let's go ahead and get that 150 out, edit, content aware fill. You can see this content aware fill is great. Apply, okay, neat. And it does a pretty good job of tone matching. This SEC logo, that's got to go. It just means more, guys. It just means more. We will address this stripe a little bit later, but let's get back to the number 9. So we're picking out images. This swap, because it's a full body swap, it requires a bunch of different pictures. So let's go ahead and pull up one of the other ones here. So one of the ways we got our number was we pulled it from this number 9 guy here. We're also going to pull the NFL shield and the B that goes right there. So let's start with the number 9. Again, we're going to use our pen tool here. A rough outline and a rough cut. We're just going to Control J, duplicate those pixels, copy, bring the layer mask over because I know that the 9 is the 9 and I'm not, all I really want are those black pixels. I don't really want a whole lot more else there. So we're going to resize it. And this is part of why you keep your original is we're going to turn that visibility back on, turn the mask visibility back on, re-enable the mask there, and we're going to turn this off, right? And now, when we look at it, let's just take our magic wand tool, make sure we just have the 9. Sweet. Now we're going to use our skew tool. We're going to manipulate it and try to see if we can't match that angle. So this is another one of the tougher parts of the swap is getting the number. I'd say that's top 5 tough parts of this is getting the number to fit close. So part of why we keep our original here is so that now I have a nice reference image when I want to go back and say, hey, how big was the number on that original jersey? And make sure it's not too big. The other thing too is I'm holding down Shift when I apply my transform so that this way it doesn't lock my proportions. That's something that Photoshop, part of your question earlier about, hey, does it help to have a cheat sheet? Photoshop, it feels like each update, they always have a way of changing things that we didn't really ask for particularly. So recently they've changed the way they do free transform and things like that. So now we're in the warp, and what we want to do, whenever you're a hot tip, whenever you are in transform, you hit Control T, right click, that gets us to warp, and we're going to warp it so that the 9 is matching the curve of Joe's jersey. All right, cool. And again, that kind of gets us where we want to be. So we'll bring back the color or the content aware version. Now we're going to mask out because right now we've got the 9 on his skin there. That's not what we want. So we're going to just go in here. We can even lower the opacity, use our pen tool, and cut out the jersey so that this way, now it's a little tough because he's got a sleeve. I think this is the, telling the jersey from the arm sleeve is a little tough there. Cut that out. Nice. All right, cool. Delete layer mask. All right, cool. Now it's going to blend a little bit better. The other thing that's a little difficult is you've got all these kind of wavy bits here with this 9. So let's go ahead and we're going to take our brush tool and we're going to try to straighten some of that out. So I'm going to have a little bit of a harder brush and just try to make it such that you can kind of see that the number's a little wavy on certain parts. So we want to try to avoid that. Maybe make it so that it's not so wavy. It's a little bit more natural to the bend of the jersey. Cool. All right, so now we have a number 9. Sweet. Let's get our B Bengal logo on there.
I know we're starting to run short on time for people. We're coming up on 60 minutes, but Kevin, keep plugging away. This is going to be available on demand for everyone. We'll share the link through email as well. So if you have to hop off, understood.
Yeah, absolutely. This is kind of, I wanted to make sure that you guys were able to see the process of it without having to skip too many steps. Do you have any questions you want me to kind of run through while I place some of these logos? Down there, sweet. If we look to at our, let's get this NFL shield on there. Again, we're using our pen tool, dragging and dropping. Yeah, selection there. Okay, I really don't need to make too many adjustments to that mask. Oh, paste. Selecting, pasting. Right, and again, we're just making sure that logo fits. Sweet, cool. All right, and then the other thing we need to do as we move up here, let's get this collar right. So in the Bengals jersey, right, they have this nice black collar. You can kind of see, if we go back to our original, you can kind of see it. So let's do some a little bit of guesswork here, just looking in, zooming in. We're gonna a rough collar here. This is a normal collar. Move on, find a new slant. And it's gonna nice and connect. Selection 0. New solid. Not too worried about making a desaturation layer with this because we're going right on the white. Picking that. We're going to go with multiply. This way we bring in some of the jersey elements. And again, we're just going to go with our brush tool and refine that edge. Just try to get some of that purple out of there. Cool. All right. We got a 9. We got a B. Let's get our other sleeve in there. We're just going to take this guy here again, pen, cutting up and going. I hit Control J and I have layers selected. That's going to it's going to make those selected pixels a new layer and bring those in. And again, we're using our free transform, angling, doing a lot of finagling. Making it fit. Sweet. having this player cut out, I would say that's the first step, because now we're able to really quickly get that nice selection there. We'll cut him out in just a second. Use my magic wand tool. That'll get some of this white out really quickly. Again, we don't want it to. Don't want our whites to clash, because that can look bad. Trying to make it look natural. That's all we're trying to do. It's a lot of attention to detail. It's a lot of looking at, okay, where's the face mask? And now we want to make sure that the stripe's not over the face mask. Going back to our content aware fill, 10.
I'm curious, for those that are on the webinar, if you're currently working or you are planning on working on a jersey swap. Anyone wants to drop what they're working on in the chat, that'd be awesome to hear.
Yeah, that was one thing I was really curious about, was how, let's see if we apply it. How many of the people in this chat are graphic designers by trade? How many of them are maybe social media people looking to pick up a new skill? You know, because this is one of those things that, like, I think if you are
Got a couple of designers popping in right now. Jacob Singer is working on a Brady to the Bucks one right now.
Sweet.
Wanda is a designer. She's from Boston University. A couple others typing in right now as well.
Cool. So I'm sure there are little things that I'm doing that will drive them nuts, because every designer has their own kind of picadillos about how they go about things. I know I do.
Kara Kay, Michigan State, who's going to be running a session upcoming soon. She usually does them for recruiting purposes, but never this detailed. Calvin Barnes, North Carolina Central, mostly a video guy, expanding his skills. I'm calling these out for you. Everyone else can kind of see this. So, got a couple of designers: Jonathan Duran, Ben Westlake, Tate Johnson, who's an animator, designer, producer, cinematographer, does it all. Swiss Army knives, love them. Lyle from Omaha Athletics, last swap he did was a holiday sweater onto a hockey player. It was an adventure, but he's a video guy by trade.
Nice. So it's good to have a good mix in there. So we're just gonna soften that edge up a little bit here. So one thing we are running into, right? So we're having a lot of issue with this particular, for whatever reason, this is giving me a hard time. So we're gonna use our clone stamp tool. We ran a little crazy there. All right, we're just gonna stamp tool. There we go. I think we about got it there. The other thing I have to keep in mind is that when you're zooming in at 200%, people aren't going to zoom in that much. As much as we all look at the detail of things, we want to get things exactly right. There's just going to be little things here and there that might not be perfect, and that is okay. So we're going to just real quick paint over this with a black brush. Again, select that mask and just get that to be black, and that'll do good for us. One thing that always kills me is when I'm brushing on the layer and not on the mask like I intend to. Neat. All right, cool. And that'll kind of get us. Sweet. So we've got a pretty complete jersey there. Now on to the pants. This is where we're going to want to use one of our other images here. So when I was looking through Getty, this one popped up. One of the tougher things, like I said, is kind of taking an image that's color and making it into something that is white. So we're going to take the biggest thing that we want to get out of this is we want to get that nice tiger stripe. So I have this guy here. I'm going to take cut him down right here at the knee. So Getting that. We're just going to want to get the one leg in there. And you can, again, it's tough telling which leg is which, right? Because you got the white on white here. Again, click, point, drag. Love the pen tool. Big pen tool guy. Selection, mask, duplicate, bring that whole layer over here. Untitled 1. And we're going to use that as a baseline. Before we get too carried away with the pant, let's get up here. Helmet, let's get the sleeve all in one. Please don't make fun of my spelling. Right cap. Number, we'll go front.
Got a question I missed. Sorry, Ben. When it comes to swapping out numbers, Kevin, how often do you download the team font, type out the number, and then warp and blend it to the jersey? Or do you always take numbers from other existing images?
I try to take numbers from existing images as much as I can. This way, you're getting the texture of the original image. Because when you do a swap, a lot of times you want to try to get it to look like it's a photorealistic image. So that's why I try to do that. If I have no other option and I'm able to download the team font, that's the other thing too, is a lot of times you're not able to download the team font, particularly with newer teams. Sportslogos.net used to be a great reference for that. And that's, and fair enough, for like various copyright reasons, that's kind of, they've had a hard time keeping that up. Not the website itself, but the all the fonts, having all the fonts available. So I would say that's kind of been one of the tougher components of it. But if you're able to pull from another picture, I would say that's the preferred way of doing it. Now we're going to use our, again, let's try this. Let's apply the layer mask here. If we need to go back, we can go back. Warp, get this pant kind of roughly match, again, emphasis on the word roughly match what Joe Burrow is doing here. Sweet. Cool. We will address this football momentarily, but you kind of get a sense of where we're going here. Neat. All right. That gives us a baseline. Of course, now we have the issue of Joe's hand, so let's go ahead and cut that out. But you can see why I said you got to budget some time for this, especially if you're doing a full body swap.
Oh yeah,
you got to budget some time for it. You know, when you're kind of taking a moment. Was anybody here for Duncan Boone's? Duncan, that's I got his name right, correct?
Yeah, you did. He was actually here himself for a little bit. He popped off.
Sweet. Yeah, he did a great job of kind of going into detail on different things. You can kind of see we're going through here. Just going to mask out this football. And we just want to get this arm here. Select 0. Can reveal that. Control I to invert. All right, now we got a pant. Sweet. One thing here, just a little bit of warp. That to fit. Nice, sweet, cool. All right. One thing I might do too is I might take this part out. And now comes the tricky part. We're gonna make his whole pant white. Taking out our trusty pen tool. And again, if you're picking up on a theme here, the step and repeat process of masking out part of the pant that we need. We'll go back and brush some of this other stuff in here. Just quick strokes. Zero feathering, right? Adjustment layer. Zero saturation. Has a layer. Delete. This made it a vector mask, and that's not what we want. Delete vector mask. Make that a layer mask. Now, because we're just fooling with white, let's try a levels adjustment. And that's what we're going to play with to get this to be a white. And even the hue saturation, brighten that up a little bit. And we're pretty close there. So again, we're going to select these pixels. So again, function and click on the mask to select it. So that this way we're able to quickly go over our brush tool up. Apply inverse. And that is going to make it so that we're able to quickly cut out the hand. And now we're just going to use our brush tool. Brush here. White. We're going to right there. And see, we're just going to make sure that all that fringing, we don't have all that yellow on the fringe because that can be very irritating. Don't want any of that stuff there. I'm going through and just picking out these details. Anybody have any questions?
Hey, so far, not any questions coming in here, but please chime in if you have any questions.
One of the other things I would say is, as far as like recruiting content goes, and this is really just a plug for the next seminar. Aaron Hodges, who is a great follow on social, any social media platform, but if you are not looking at TikTok, man, you are you're behind the times. So that's going to be a really good one. I highly suggest that. If I'm not able to make it in person, I will definitely be checking that out on the webinar, because that is that's an interesting one. So right here we got this harsh edge that we want to kind of try to address. I got to figure out what's making that. It looks like it is our hue saturation layer, because that kind of stems from our pen tool. So we're gonna soften that up there. Soft, just taking a nice soft brush. One of the things that my computer's been having a hard time with is the brush tool. So I gotta make a lot of little brush strokes. Take that down there. Cool. That's just giving us a good. Sweet. Make one more adjustment here with the hue saturation, or we'll just go black and white because we don't have to change the color of it. And I make the mask black, and then just fill in over here. Because one thing we have is, because we have these bright yellow pants, we're getting a yellow reflection onto the towel here. So we just want to go in with our brush tool and make that go away, so that we don't have random spots of yellow reflecting off of a white pant, because that's not how sunlight works. Cool. Sweet. So we got a pretty solid Joe Burrow here, right? Which is awesome. One more thing that we want to do, let's switch that football out, right? Because when we look, I mean, he's wearing an NFL uniform, so we want him to be holding NFL football. So luckily, we'll go on Google, pick out an NFL game ball. We already got it nice and masked out here. Copy, bring it over.
Sorry, Kevin. Now we're getting to the point now where I'm starting to get phone calls on shit. So
Okay.
I'm trying to like duck out and tell people.
You're good. If I need to wrap it up, just let me know.
No, keep plugging away.
All good. Group this pant together here too. One thing I would suggest, if you want this to go be a faster process, do not do a full body swap. That is one of the things that I wanted to demonstrate. I wanted to kind of go into different detail, because I knew we were going to have some designers on here who were going to be able to garner a lot from this. So I wanted to make sure we spoke to both audiences here. But if you want to do a quick one, then I would say a half body swap is a great measure for that.
Question coming in here, Kevin, from Lyle. Lyle is at Omaha Athletics. No, you mentioned layer masks as an important tool in Photoshop. Curious if you had any other tools you consider foundational when doing sports-related edits, clone, stamp, pen tool, etc.
Pen tool for sure. I think if you're going to learn anything in Adobe, I think you should learn the pen tool. I'm going to harken back to the After Effects tutorial that we were talking about earlier. When you go back and watch that, you'll notice that there's no quick select tool in After Effects, nor is there a quick select tool in Illustrator, nor is there a quick select tool in anything else that you use, because the Photoshop is really the only program that has that. So while, yeah, it's great to, again, when you're just cutting out players, the quick select tool or the magic wand tool or whatever other tool you might want to use is great. But when you want to do more detailed work, or you want a tool you want to learn a tool that is going to hold you in good stead throughout the Adobe Creative Suite, got to learn the pen tool. I mean, it's again, foundational. I would say it's foundational. Layer masks, foundational. Gotta know those. Selection 0, and again, we're kind of step and repeating here. Putting that football in. Cool. Now I told him the football, and what we're going to do too is we're just going to add a little bit of shadow underneath of his, and we're going to use a soft black brush. Just kind of want that to be underneath, not on top. Just soften the brush and call it a day there. All right, so you can kind of see what we're going to do instead. We're going to pull a natural shadow here, soften that, and use a, what are we at, 70%? 82%. So an 82% brightness brush, just so we get some of the more natural finger part of it. Cool. All right, so now we got football. We got a Joe Burrow. Let's add our background. So we're going to take our Burrow Bengals swap, go back to our original image here. Got this image. We're going to copy and paste it and bring it over. Football. There it is. Again, this is what we use to make it look a little bit more like he's actually in Paul Brown Stadium. Pant. The back. Alt and layer mask. That makes it that automatically starts your mask out at full black. Gradient overlay. Let me just do that. And get this nice, not soft. Hold on. Part of why I chose this image too is because it has it's got that nice natural bokeh. That's great. And let's give him a little bit of context too. Delete layer mask. New blank mask. Soft round. Now I like to use my right click on the, excuse me, I'm sorry about that. I want to right click when we're using the brush. That automatically brings up our brush preset tool. We're able to manipulate our brush, so we want to make it a flat brush. White, reveal, so that gets us some of the nice grass. Cool. I'm going to bring over the gradient map that we used to get this nice color. Duplicate layer. I keep wanting to bring it over to football. Untitled 1. Make sure it's on top of there. Cool. And we're also going to use this gradient map tool on here. Delete these empty layers. Group that all together under player. Create clipping mask, and it'll just apply there. You know what? Don't love how that looks. And we're just doing a little bit of screen. Create clipping masks. So this way the gradient map just applies here. I don't love it. Don't love the way that's working there. So one thing I can do too, duplicate player copy. We want to keep that group intact. Merge group. Oh, buddy, we're having a hard time with that. What is that? Something in the pant is not agreeing with me here. So let's do this in our player copy pant. So let's do this. Let's take this guy here. So these blending modes here are on multiply. Bring it back over here. Untitled 1. Multiply. Multiply. Give them a little gradient here. Multiply. And what I'm trying to do really is just give it a nice little lighting effect. So I figured out the issue we're having here with the pants. So the pant image isn't clipping to the player cutout the same way. So when we go into our pant here, we're going to make sure that mask fits nice. We're going to hit our brush tool. And we're kind of real-time problem solving here. Uh-oh. First, we're going to go in, and we're just going to make sure that the pant image that we brought over is clipping nice. There we go. Now it's starting to make a little bit more sense. You're starting to see we're using a gradient tool there. Number one, it gives us a nice little lighting effect. And number two, we're going to do this again. But now we're going to go with a black, white. Select there. Use our brush to make this adjustment layer only apply to the bottom part of it. Because what I want to do is I want to quickly, without having to spend another few hours on the leggings. So you can see we got a couple of trouble spots, and we'll adjust that as we go as well. Back here, back there. Multiply. You can even just do a hue, saturation. So we're using blending modes and we're using opacity this way. We're quickly making that so it's passable. And I think we're about there. Cut up that one little part of it. And again, you can spend hours upon hours if this demo is any indication on all the little details of it. So this little hue saturation bump here, let's just clean that mask up. We about got it. We're just gonna add one more little thing here. I'm gonna take this nice gradient map, duplicate it. All right, and we'll go into the detail of this gradient map here. Delete the layer mask, bring it up to the top of the player copy. All right, so we got all our other adjustments here. Gradient map, sweet. Make sure that the mask matches all those. Oh boy. Untitled 1. Gradient map. And again, that's just going to give us our nice color selection. We're going to take an orange. Some red, black, sweet, cool. Make it so that the mask only applies to the player. Soft light. Lower the opacity. And there you have it. You can make all sorts of adjustments, but that is a completed piece.
Wow.
Yeah. Yep. So we'll. Anybody have any questions without getting too into? Again, we could spend hours upon hours on a lot of the intricate details of changing the background, but that kind of gets you where you need to be. Anybody have any questions?
We got one question from Ben Westlake. What do you search to find images of the stadium like you have in this graphic? Where's a shot of the field with no players on it?
So that's a great question. Let's pull up the original image, duplicate. We'll just duplicate this layer. So what I did was I just searched Paul Brown Stadium, delete layer mask. Let me see, select all the pixels. I'm trying to pull up the original image here. But basically it's an image where the action is in the far right third. So that was particularly helpful. So if we move it around, you can kind of see it's a picture of Baker Mayfield, right? It even has the Getty Images stamp still on there. But because he's in the third, right? If you look at the image, there's enough kind of enough on the sides that you're able to finagle it and able to kind of make it work.
Clever.
Yep. Those are the little tips and tricks. So the environmental part is a big part of the swap where that makes it look a little bit more photorealistic.
Who are some of the people you've seen that have done some of the best swaps?
Dave Herringer has done fantastic swaps. He's somebody that I go back and forth with. He's the social media graphic designer for the Baltimore Ravens. He has just done a fantastic job and actually did a really great breakdown on one that they did for Derek Wolfe, who recently signed. Mitch Pansky does a great job. He's always done ones with, like, particularly the Packers. So he's a guy that does a great job, and there's all sorts of people who make some fantastic swaps. And you're seeing a lot more NFL teams make jersey swaps when they sign guys in free agency. So that's been a really, really exciting thing to kind of almost watch how something that really only existed primarily in message boards and recruiting kind of trickled its way up to the NFL.
Yes, jersey swaps have become standard for the industry at this point, which has been great. And there's, one of the reasons I wanted you, Kevin, to run through this is because there's still a lot of people out there that don't necessarily have this skill set. And during a time like this, improving upon your own skills, it's a great opportunity to develop them. And I don't know if you paid attention a few years ago, Bleacher Report during the NFL draft, when I was at ESPN, we were so excited to do jersey swaps, and Bleacher Report one-upped us because they were taking college highlights, particularly for like wide receivers and running backs and quarterbacks. And as they were getting drafted, they were taking After Effects and swapping the jersey in motion for what they were doing.
Yeah.
And basically building it out where I think it was Ezekiel Elliott, whenever he got drafted by the Cowboys, they basically took a play of his from Ohio State and quickly swapped it into a Cowboys jersey as he was scoring. It was next level, and my mind was blown, but I know that's not realistic in real time.
Yeah. Yeah. I would imagine they must have had so much of that pre-built and then just kind of like, hey, we have this in the can, hope it works. Because again, as you guys seen, like I'm working as quickly through this as possible, and it's been 2 hours. So you can kind of budget your time a little bit, right? Or it's been an hour 35, whatever it may be, but you kind of get the gist of it. It's an in-depth process, and even still, like there's lots in here that if I really wanted to, like these leggings here still look a little purple. We can kind of go in and desaturate that, but you sort of get the idea without getting too into it, right? Maybe if I even just did a little bit with a black, just because now that I look at it, it is kind of bugging me. There we go. Nice. Now it's not purple.
When I was at ESPN, we used to say that you prepare for 90% of whatever content you're creating for a live event to basically hit the cutting floor. So you prepare, and it's almost like in football too, where 90% of the plays that they prepare for the week, you just end up not using. But it's an exercise, and those that are prepared end up coming out better from a content experience. So Kevin, thank you so much. I appreciate your time, like especially going over and finishing this out, like truly incredible work that you did for us and you continue to do at Navy football. So thank you.
I really appreciate the opportunity to be on and to, share what we're doing. I think we have one of the best recruiting efforts in all of college football. I really believe that. So it's a special place to be a part of, getting to go to work every day with people that constantly challenge me to be better. There isn't a program like the one in Annapolis, man. I love where I'm at.
Well, just from afar, the work that you're doing is incredible. Some of the best that we've seen right now in sports. So truly impressed by everything that you've done and continue to do, Kevin. Like, thank you. And for everyone that's on this, Nikki just dropped in the networking sheet. Please follow Kevin, add him on LinkedIn. Can't thank you enough, Kevin.
No problem. And you know what? If you are anybody in here that is on the fence about influencer, man, they have taken such good care of us at Navy football. Danielle Tate and Josh Taylor in particular, the two that we work with the most. And one of the great things for me is being a part of this INFLCR Academy is getting to reach out and meet new members of the influencer team. They have been truly fantastic partners. They have made our recruiting effort that much more dynamic, that much more creative, and really push the boundaries of what we're able to do. So I'm appreciative of INFLCR and all that you guys are doing for athletes.
Well, thank you, Kevin. Those are incredibly kind words. And for those that are still paying attention, I did not pay him or tell him to say that. So thank you so much. I appreciate it. Everyone, please stay safe out there. Have a wonderful day. And we'll catch you tomorrow for TikTok 101. Thanks. Bye, Kevin.
Yes. Go Navy. Beat Army.